Hello, so in today's video I'm going to be talking about I Am Legend. I'm going to be talking about both the book and the film. I saw the film ages and ages ago, literally when it first came out. I saw it at the cinema with my sister and I really liked it. I've rewatched it many times since, and I always knew it was a book. And I always knew the book had a different ending from the film, and I actually believe they're bringing out a second film in the I Am Legend. I think they're going to make it a series or whatnot. But yeah, there's going to be another film coming out soon, continuing the story. So I was like, do you know what? I love the film. I've always known there's a book, and then yeah, this kind of popped up, and I was like, I'm going to get it and give it a go and see what I think. And like I said, I heard the endings were different, but these are way more different than what I actually thought they were going to be. So to talk about the film, you follow this character called Neville, obviously the character being played by Will Smith, and you first meet him and he's in this overgrown, isolated city, wandering around by himself. It's very obvious something major's happened, and it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic kind of vibe, and he's walking around, just him and his dog, and then it becomes apparent that, you know, he's kind of losing his marbles a little bit. The isolation's getting to him, and the fact that he's so completely alone and has nobody to talk to is getting to him. He's talking to mannequins and all of that kind of stuff. And then nighttime settles and creepy stuff starts happening, and you're like, okay, something major's happening. And you discover that he's living in the city with these creatures, and you're not quite sure what they are. They're quite creepy. There may be some spoilers, by the way, in this video, because it's going to be really hard to compare them otherwise. But yeah, he is living in this town with these creatures who come out at night, and he has to lock himself away from them. And yeah, he's just trying to survive. He's this scientist, and you get flashbacks to the past when he had his family, and, you know, it turns out he was a scientist and he was working on, I think it's a cure for cancer, which then mutates, and this whole virus thing spreads and it mutates people. And yeah, it's a very intense film. It's very action packed. It's quite fast paced, and I really enjoy it. I highly recommend it as a horror film. If you're into like post-apocalyptic films, like creature films, vampire films, then I would highly recommend the film. It's very intense. I really like, there's two different endings to the film. They filmed two different endings. I like the original ending they went with, the one I saw at the cinema, which I won't say completely what that is to completely give it away, but I just thought it fit the premise really well. But yeah, like I said, I knew that the book ending was different, so I thought, oh, I'll try the book, see what it's like. And they are very different. Like, the film is very loosely based, in my opinion, on the book. The similarities between the book and the film are, they both have a main character called Neville, who is apparently, or seems to be, the only human left alive. They both have creatures, although in the book the creatures are very much vampires. I would say the film doesn't portray them completely as vampires. I think it does quite a good job of having a little bit of mystery around the creatures in the films. So I call them creatures. I wouldn't say they're exactly vampires. Like, when you say vampires, the creatures in this aren't what spring to mind. Whereas in this book, they're very much traditional vampires. They're a little bit more humanesque. Some of them can talk. Some of them, you know, like, are living in houses. They're still kind of going about daily business. Whereas in this, they're very much, the creatures are no longer human. They no longer have like a built society. They are seen as just pack hunting creatures, kind of a thing. And that's what they're portrayed as in the film. Whereas, yeah, in the book, they're very much more traditional vampires. And the way Neville goes about disposing of them, again, is quite traditional. He has the whole steaks and garlic and you have to stake them through the heart and rub your house with garlic, and yeah, it's very much traditional vampires, whereas in the film there's none of that. Literally the only thing is they can't go out in daylight and they only come out at night. That's pretty much the only similarities between the creatures and these two things. They're very different, and that's not to say that's a bad thing. I just don't think I was expecting it. I didn't realise how old this book was as well, because it says here the most clever and riveting vampire novel since Dracula. So yeah, I really liked Dracula as a novel, but this one, does it say what year it was published? 1980s, I think. Is that when this was first published? I mean, the book is set in 1954. Oh no, I think that's actually when it was written. This is the introduction. I Am Legend, maybe one of the simplest of great SF novels, simplest at least in premise of not the work out of the So yeah, you're following Robert Neville, sorry. And this is a book by Richard Matheson. I don't remember if I said that. I mean, you can see it there. But yeah, they're very, very different. I think this is the very rare occasion. I've lost my train of thought now. I should have made notes on how to actually do this review properly. But anyway, I'm just going to ramble. Yeah, I think this is one of those rare occasions where I actually much prefer the film, because in both stories, the character Neville, like I said, he's kind of become very isolated. He's very much a hermit. He's very isolated, he's grumpy, he has almost forgotten how to socialise because he's been away from civilised society for so long and has been living on his own for so long, that he really is this grumpy old hermit. And I think that is portrayed in both the book and the film, but I would say it's easier to watch than it is to read, if that makes sense. Because you get it when you watch him and you can see his emotions and how he's struggling. Whereas in the book, it does get a little bit, it like drags on a little bit. And you're reading from Neville's perspective, and at points you're like, okay, come on Neville, let's go. Let's like kick up a gear. Like you just kind of want to kick him in the pants and be like, come on. Because you want him to succeed. You like him. He's like the last human alive, so it's like you want him to be okay. But as the situations become more dire, and in both the film and the novel, they recognise, oh hang on, there is a human still left alive for very different reasons, but they do recognise there is a human left alive, and they start coming after him. Yeah, you do want him to succeed. You want him to be okay. But yeah, I just felt like it was a little bit more, the situation was more dire in the film, and in the novel it seemed to just drag on a little bit, and it is quite a long book. But to be honest, I think I got halfway through, and maybe if I hadn't seen the film first and I hadn't, you know, have a love for this film already, then I would have enjoyed this a little bit better. So I would say if you haven't read or watched either of these, maybe read the book first and then watch the film. I think that would be the better way round to do it. Because I like the aspect, I like the story, I liked the plot, like the theme behind it, I really enjoyed. I thought it was a really clever idea. And considering this was written, back in the 50s, yeah, considering it was written back then, I actually think it was a really good novel for its time. It's just that after having watched the action-packed film, I was kind of expecting more. And there were bits of the film that I really enjoyed that weren't really in this. So I like the fact that he was like a scientist in this story. It made sense to his storyline, and his plot points were quite different from this one. They have different motivations as well. But yeah, in this one, he very much is just your average Joe, average guy trying to survive in like this post-apocalyptic vampire world where he's the only guy left. and he's struggling to keep going, and he doesn't know how he's going to keep going, or if even he should bother going, carry on going. What he's going to do. Is he going to stay in this house? Is he going to have to eventually leave his house? Yeah, I feel like this one had much stronger plot than this, like much stronger motivation than this one did. And I think that it reflected that in the endings. I didn't really like the ending of this book. And like I said, if you've watched and read both, I'm sure you can understand why. I don't want to say why, because the endings are so different in both. I don't want to give either away, but just to say I much preferred the I Am Legend story and ending over the book. However, having said that, I am pleased that I finally read this book. I will admit it got very slow. It got a little bit boring halfway through, and I contemplated DNFing, but I was like, no, I'm going to read it to the end. It's one of those books on my list that I've always wanted to read, so I'm going to do it. And I'm glad I did read it, but I'm probably never going to read it, read it again, unfortunately. I think in terms of horror novels that I enjoy, I just feel like the pacing of this was too slow, and the character Neville, reading from his perspective, was a little bit frustrating, whereas I felt it made it easier to watch a grumpy, isolated hermit getting pushed out of his comfort zone. It was easier to watch than it was to read, if that makes sense. So yeah, I will have to say I would probably give this film a 5 out of 5 star. I really enjoy it. I've rewatched it many times, and I would probably give this a 3. I would give this a 3. I enjoyed, like I said, the ideas behind it. It's just the execution of it wasn't quite there for me in terms of what I like to read in horror novels. I like, you know, I like to feel like there's a rush behind the story, whereas this was just kind of plodding along a little bit and a little bit too mopey, whereas I felt like there was more motivation in the film. But yeah, very different, similar premises. Like I said, they both follow a guy called Neville in a post-apocalyptic world full of vampire creatures, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, they have completely different plot lines, completely different even backstories, and completely different motivations in both the film and the book. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. I know this was kind of all over the place. Like I said, I probably should have made notes. I'm thinking about doing more like book movie comparisons, so hopefully I will get better at this. But let me know your thoughts. Have you read the book and have you watched the film? Have you seen both? And what's your feelings? Do you like both? Do you like the book more? If you like the book more, then please let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, because for me, I'm going to definitely pick the film over the book, which very rarely happens. But yeah, this is a 5 star for me, and this is probably a 3. Not bad, but yeah, just not fantastic. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. My battery light is flashing, so I'm going to have to stop rambling. And as always, thank you for watching. Until next time, bye guys.